than a voice.
This is Health Check, your weekly guide to better living, smarter choices, and trusted answers. From everyday wellness to urgent health issues, we've got you covered. Health Check, only on Voice of the People television, where your health has a voice.
In a world where truth is the ultimate power and opinions scream the loudest, it's time to wade through the noise.
Hunger no get tribe! Hunger no get religion!
And scan the human interest and trending topics that matter. Stay tuned to The Issues, your plug to the stories making the buzz, from politics to science and technology, social justice, and more. Let's tackle the tough questions and expose the truth. The Issues, on Voice of the People television, Mondays to Fridays, 8 to 9 p.m. The Issues. Don't just react, understand.
We encourage you to click on the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are Voice of the People TV. Also follow us on all our social media platforms. We are at VOPTV Live. Visit our website www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news. Also watch us live on SLTV channel 264, VOPTV, Voice of the People Television.
To know the happenings in the maritime sector, join us on the program Maritime Frontiers on VOP TV as we discuss key areas in the maritime sector, from aquaculture, maritime transportation, maritime labor regulation, oil and gas exploration, ferry and passenger insurance, marine pollution and prevention, port operations, and lots more. Maritime Frontiers, exploring Nigeria's blue economy.
In a world where power shifts with every headlines, news breaks and events happens, we bring you unbiased and explicit information on politics, economy, and state of the nation. We break down the chaos. Facts, not fluff. Truth, not spin. We discuss not just politics, but a glimpse into the future. Voice of the People television. Now you have more than a voice.
VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
We encourage you to click on the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are Voice of the People TV. Also follow us on all our social media platforms. We are at VOPTV Live. Visit our website www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news. Also watch us live on SLTV channel 264, VOPTV, Voice of the People television.
VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
Mr. Familoni, and here's to VOP TV. Keep watching, stay tuned, do not touch that dial.
My name is Made Kuti and you're watching BOP TV. Keep watching.
Welcome, my name is Zika Davis. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, boys, viewers, everybody, boys and girls. This is VOP TV. Do you know what that means? Voice of the People TV. You don't have a voice, don't come here. You better make sure your voice is heard.
Are you ready for the extraordinary? Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice. In a world where truth is the ultimate power and opinions scream the loudest, it's time to wade through the noise.
Hunger no get tribe. Hunger no get religion.
And scan the human interest and trending topics that matter. Stay tuned to The Issues, your plug to the stories making the buzz, from politics to science and technology, social justice, and more. Let's tackle the tough questions and expose the truth. The Issues on Voice of the People Television. Don't just react, understand. Do you want your voice to be heard? Do you know that you matter in the scheme of things? The People's Voice.
Well, hello and welcome to the African News and Voice of the People Television. I am David Edwin. Before beginning the news, we would urge you to kindly visit our website. It's www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news stories. We'll begin the African news from Nairobi, where passengers at Nairobi Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, one of Africa's busiest air transport hubs, are facing significant disruption as a strike by air traffic controllers enters its second day. Launched by the Kenyan Aviation Workers Union in spite of a court order, the strike has led to delays of up to 4 hours for departures, with some flights cancelled. Kenya Airways, the national carrier, has warned passengers to expect scheduled adjustments and delays, advising them not to proceed to the airport without confirming their flight status. Ugandan Airlines has cancelled 2 flights, while Jambo Jet has asked passengers to stay away from the airport until further notice. The strike is over workers' grievances, including the failure to include and conclude a collective bargaining agreement and the placement of employees on temporary terms for roles deemed permanent. The Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has expressed willingness to resolve the dispute amicably, with the Transport Minister summoning the union and aviation authorities to a meeting to break the deadlock. Away from that report, Nigerian President General Abdulrahman Tiani has expressed gratitude to Algeria for the country's rejection of the calls for military intervention in the wake of the July 2023 coup. Tiani told a joint news conference in Algiers with his Algerian counterpart Abdelmajid Tebboune that Algerian authorities showed solidarity with the Nigerian people in spite of the futile attempts by certain powers with neo-colonial undertones, as well as international and sub-Saharan organizations that had been ordered and manipulated. According to Tiani, no Algerian, no African could comprehend that Algeria would allow its territory to be used to attack an African country, especially when it concerns the same power that for over a century inflicted unbearable suffering to the variant Algerian people. Following the ouster of President Mohamed Bazoum, the Economic Community of West African States had issued an ultimatum to the coup leaders threatening military intervention to restore constitutional order and activate its standby force. However, Tiani compared Algeria's position with what he called some African countries or their manipulated leaders who missed their historical rendezvous by responding to French calls to wage war against the Nigerian people. In another development, the Vermont community of the United States has lamented that a Ugandan cleric and licensed nursing assistant Stephen Tendo remains in the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's the ICE, at the Stratford County Jail in New Hampshire. Tendo, who worked at the University of Vermont Medical Center and a long-term care facility in Burlington, was arrested on February 4th, 2026, sparking widespread outrage and concern about his well-being. Initially, Tendo was denied medication for his type 2 diabetes, cholesterol, and allergies, but his attorney, Christopher Worth, reports that conditions have improved since his transfer to the Dover facility. Tendo's community in Vermont is rallying to support him with a GoFundMe campaign raising over $35,000 for his lost wages and legal expenses. Tendo, who fled Uganda in 2018, has been fighting deportation, citing fears of persecution and torture if returned. His asylum application was denied in 2019, and he has been appealing that decision. Vermont's congressional delegation, including Senators Bernie Sanders and Peter Welch, and Representative Becca Balint, have expressed support for Tendo, calling for his release and due process. And in Uganda, the Kawempe division of Uganda is struggling with poor roads and drainage systems despite nationwide efforts by the government to improve infrastructure. Vice Chairperson Suleiman Sekanyo told newsmen that stagnant water has become a breeding ground for mosquitoes, leading to rising cases of malaria and waterborne diseases. Sekanyo is urging the government to prioritize Kawempe's needs, saying the area requires urgent attention. Moving on, the United Nations Human Rights Office has disclosed that migrants in Libya are being subjected to systematic human rights violations, including killings and torture. It called for an end to interceptions and the return of migrant boats at sea. According to a report by the UN Human Rights Office and the UN Support Mission, migrants are rounded up and abducted by criminal trafficking networks, often with ties to the Libyan authorities and criminal networks abroad. From Libya, we'll go straight to Zambia, where the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has appointed Amanda Hosi Mukwashi of Zambia as the UN Residence Coordinator in Angola. Mukwashi brings over 30 years of experience in international development and humanitarian sectors with a focus on poverty reduction, equality, and social justice. Most recently, Mukwashi served as UN Residence Coordinator in Lesotho, leading interagency collaboration on national development priorities. She has held senior roles with UN volunteers and UNFPA and worked with organizations like Christian Aid and Voluntary Service overseas. The appointment was announced by the United Nations, highlighting Mukwashi's dedication to public service and her expertise in development and humanitarian work. Still on some diplomacy matters, the United States Embassy said President Donald Trump's conservative media critic, Brent Bozell, picks an envoy to South Africa. Has arrived to take up his post with bilateral relations fractured over a range of issues. Washington and Pretoria are at odds over a series of international and domestic policies, from South Africa's genocide case against Israel to Trump's disputed claims that white Afrikaners are being persecuted. The 70-year-old Boesel needs to present his credentials to President Cyril Ramaphosa before officially taking up his post. Trump chose the right-wing Boesel for the job in March, soon after expelling South Africa's ambassador on accusation that he was critical of Washington. Pretoria has yet to announce a successor. Trump said at the time that Boesel brings fearless tenacity, extraordinary experience, and vast knowledge to a nation that desperately needs it. And in South Africa, 3 South Africans have been charged with murder over the killing of a Nigerian Bolt e-hailing driver, Isaac Satlat, after dashcam footage of the incidents was shared widely on social media and sparked public outrage. The suspects, 24-year-old Dikeledi Mpela, 25-year-old Gutsioni Machedi, and 30-year-old McLaren Mushnawa, appeared briefly in court in Pretoria on Monday. They later abandoned their bail application. Police also confirmed that a 4th suspect has handed himself over and was expected to appear in court on Tuesday. The 22-year-old Satlat was a Nigerian national living in South Africa. However, his family said the attack was not connected to his nationality, in spite of repeated cases of xenophobic violence in the country. According to prosecutors, the suspect ordered a boat ride last Wednesday using a phone number not registered to any of them. Authorities said 2 of the suspects entered Satlat's vehicle while the other 2 followed behind in a separate car. They allegedly forced him to stop, strangled him to death, and robbed him of his phone and vehicle. The car was later rediscovered. Still on some violence and crime matters, Ghana's Interior Minister Mohamed Montaka has disclosed that 7 Ghanaian tomato traders were among those killed when Islamist insurgents attacked the town of Sitao in northern Burkina Faso over the weekend. The victims were among a group of 18 traders who had entered Ghana's northern neighbor to buy tomatoes when the militants stormed the town, separating men from women before opening fire, according to the statement from the minister. According to Muntaka, the insurgents went on a shooting spree, killing almost all the males there and burning them together with the trucks, adding that the bodies were burnt beyond recognition. He further disclosed that 3 men and 1 woman from the group survived with injuries, while the remaining 7 women escaped unharmed. The minister said the dead were buried on Monday in Burkina Faso, with the surviving female traders attending as witnesses. However, he disclosed that Ghanaian officials were unable to reach the site due to security concerns. Just a watch in the African news right here on Voice of the People Television. We'll go straight to the analysis segment of the news. And joining us now to make sense of these stories and more is Barrister Darlington Agumo, who is a public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Barrister, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining the conversation this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Also joining us virtually all the way from Uganda is Barrister Edward Okwaro Omata-Kenya. Barrister Edward is also a human rights activist and a business associate, as well as a public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Barrister, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining the conversation this afternoon.
A very good afternoon, David. Thank you.
Also joining us virtually all the way from Zimbabwe is Dr. Masimba Mvasa. Dr. Masimba is a media consultant and also a public affairs analyst and commentator. Well, I understand Dr. Masimba would join the conversation in the course of the program. And joining us also virtually all the way from Kenya is Mr. Martins Irere Njue. Mr. Martins is a financial advisor and also a public and political affairs commentator. He's also the CEO of Wealthgate Insurance Agency. Mr. Martins, a very good afternoon to you and thank you for joining the conversation this afternoon.
A very good afternoon to you, Mr. David. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for joining the conversation. Well, let me start off from Uganda, where Barrister Edward is with us. The massacre of Ghanaian traders in Burkina Faso is a very disturbing one, and some have said this is something that African Union carefully should look into, and how we can have regional policing to curb this level of insecurity that have bedeviled most countries in Africa, even though the part of sovereignty of the state is also still there. But does the massacre of Ghanaian traders expose the collapse of ECOWAS as a security bloc in the Sahel region? What's your position, Barrister Edward?
Thank you, David. Yes, I was actually trying to pick your question well, but talking about the massacre of the traders, it's actually an unfortunate issue which should be looked at regionally, and also even actually other international friends, because it is not actually in our hands to see people being massacred like the way you see what has happened in Ghana. So I feel African Union is still very young in most of the issues concerning Africa. Africa requires now to wake up and see whether they should start discussing about African Union in probably implementing decisions, policies which are going to protect Africa at large. Africa is totally bleeding in all corners, but the efforts of African Union is totally missing on the ground. So I think it is something which we need to look at. Who's the protector of these countries? Who's our father today? Until we start focusing in Western world to come and rescue the situation which is in hand, which we could have actually resolved ourselves, but because we have failed to provide solutions to Africans.
Now, I'm going to stay with you, Barrister. It's the inability of Ghanaian authorities to reach the massacre site, prove that sovereignty ends within the borders of Ghana, because you would recall that Burkina Faso is being, of course, being chaired by a military junta. Does it mean that the fact that the Ghanaian authorities cannot get to that site doesn't mean that their sovereignty ends within the borders?
There must be also issues to be maybe ironed, which I don't think that would be the way we are looking at. I believe the Ghanaians should be having that power, that authority, and the counterpart to make sure that this is something which should be handled, first of all, as a neighbor. So I think Ghanaians on the other way should actually see, would have actually looked at it and probably approach the counterpart and see how this should be resolved.
All right, then let me take this conversation to Kenya, where Mr. Martins is standing by. I mean, you are a financial person. These are traders who went across the border to do business, and as it stands, being massacred by some Boko Haram set in a country where, of course, military junta is the leader, and I'm talking about Ibrahim Traore. Concerns are being raised about the sovereignty of state and the relationship between Ghana and Burkina Faso. What's your position with this development, owing to the fact that, I mean, traders being buried alive? How much of insurgency are we seeing a genocidal campaign against civilians rather than a political rebellion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. David. One is to understand that trade policy has been threatened across the borders. Secondly, is about competition. So you find because of competition, the interested parties will violate the rights of others, and the ends you find that in Burkina Faso there is an issue whereby it is governed by the military, what we call military coup. And the ends you find that the borders of the country that is governed by the military, whenever you cross the border, you become a threat to that country, because now you find the policy there, they are not consolidated to favor the foreigners. In most cases, now you find that in that country there is no democracy. So you find even if parliament meetings are happening, they cannot address the issue to do with human rights.
Right.
Well, and we can see internationally human rights in most cases as very denied. So in this case, we would urge the two countries to have a dialogue or bilateral talks to ensure these matters has been put has been called to order, because that is now that matter can demonstrate that human rights has been denied, has been ignored, and has not been given the higher platform to be observed in both countries. So it means that there is diplomatic tie that has gap, and you need the two countries to address it amicably to ensure that kind of a casualty does not arise anytime soon.
All right, then. Let me bring this conversation to the studio here. Barrister, interestingly, this conversation about bilateral ties being threatened as a result of insurgency, as we find between Burkina Faso and Ghana. Now, this, to put the record straight, was an act committed by insurgents group Boko Haram, and of course 18 traders with Ghanaian nationals involved in all of this. The question about ECOWAS, the collapse of ECOWAS, is what I want to ask you, Barrister. Does this mean that the security bloc, as ECOWAS as a security bloc, has failed, or has it totally collapsed for us not to have this level of security between these two states?
That 3 ECOWAS states went their separate ways is not enough when it comes to insecurity. I'm sure there is still that collaboration to fight against terrorism and other forms of insecurity in the West African bloc. What I expect Ghana to do here is to make a formal demand for those people who killed their nationals, who came from Burkina Faso to kill their nationals. If there is no response to their requests, then there should be a collaboration to rout out the criminals in Burkina Faso, because if you don't do so, they will come again. That's just the simple truth. Ghana is supposed to collaborate with Burkina Faso to go to a particular area where these terrorists are hiding and then rout them out. I don't think that with the collaboration of Burkina Faso army and that of Ghana, these criminals will be a match to them. So they need to collaborate now. If not, I'm telling you, they will come again.
Unfortunately, Barrister, this situation of traders being killed in the northern Burkina Faso area, it's not about the first time, because records have it in 2019 and in 2021. That's, of course, when, of course, the jihadist violence was beginning to, brew its ugly head. But you just mentioned collaboration. We're talking about a state that have left the ECOWAS body. Should that bring any suggestion of not having to fully collaborate with Ghana?
I said when it comes to insecurity, your economic or political bloc is not enough excuse not to collaborate, because you have a common enemy here. Like I told you, they will come again if there's no collaborative effort to round them out. That's just the truth. Burkina Faso and Ghana should start discussing security collaboration against these particular criminals. That is what I think. That's the only solution to the problem. Because if you continue to say we are on our separate block, we cannot do this, then one day it will come to your doorsteps, and nobody will be there to help you. Look at America now helping Nigeria. Is that not something? So West African states, you look at that collaborative effort. There's no other way to go except through this route, because these criminals are becoming bold by the day. You know, they are becoming unmanageable. So African states should collaborate. If they collaborate, these guys are no match to them. That's the truth.
All right, then. Barrister, let's talk about another conversation, and we'll go into South Africa here, where Washington clearly has been their particular candidate of choice. The United States Embassy has said President Donald Trump's conservative media critic, Brent Bozell, 70-year-old, is picked as the envoy to South Africa and have arrived to take up the post with, of course, bilateral relations being fractured over a range of issues between U.S. and South Africa. Again, the concerns are being raised about the odds, about the international and domestic policies of South Africa and Washington, because this is something that is still ongoing. But the choice of in any way help the relationship of South Africa and Washington do better in the coming days? Because again, Trump has spoken highly of this particular man.
It is not about the envoy you are sending to South Africa. It's about the government of South Africa accepting him. What if the government of South Africa have one or two issues against the man in particular? Of course, they may not welcome him. That's just the truth. It's not about Donald Trump's choice. It's about acceptability. Just like Nigerian people are having issues, the nominated ambassadors are still waiting because their countries of primary assignment are debating, are looking at their credentials, whether they should accept them or not.
Right.
So if this man now is a racist or whatever, or anti-South African person, do you think Sri Ramaphosa will welcome him?
And to think that Washington also expelled the ambassador of South Africa in the U.S., even though South Africa has not yet brought up a successor.
So it may be a quid pro quo. You accept our man, we accept your own.
You think that would come into play in negotiation?
It may be. Maybe that's after the man's credentials have been cleared by South Africa. They may not send their own person. And then if Donald Trump said, I don't want to see this man, he's part of those people killing whites in South Africa, what do you think will happen? Of course, they will send the man back. And then South Africa will send their own person back.
Barrister, with this development, do you think there might be a better relationship going forward on the part of South Africa and Washington?
Until Donald Trump will start bullying everybody. He has a different agenda. He may not be a bad person, no, but the way he's going about one America first, there is more to it. The man just want people to remember him when he leaves South Africa. I mean, when he leaves America, and maybe go to jail. He at least would have made his mark. People will remember him for one or two things. That's what he want to make. He want to make a mark.
All right, then let me take this conversation to Uganda. Barrister Edward, questions have been raised about the choice of Donald Trump, a conservative media critic, as envoy. Some have said this clearly is marking the collapse of traditional diplomacy in favor of ideological warfare. What do you make of this as well?
We are in the world where we're actually watching politicians play game. And I'm looking at this as a political game between between Trump and now the South African leadership. So I see there is a heavyweight called Trump is actually trying to show Africa that it can always dictate in any way. So I think we should learn from whatever cost. Yes, we depend in the Western world, but Africans should also wake up. We shouldn't actually accept each and everything which is given to us. There should be some lines drawn when it comes like the type of collaboration we need with this country.
The question, Barrister, is do we truly have the bargaining power to wanting to come into that seat with the Western powers? Does Africa have the bargaining power?
In fact, that is where the problem is. We actually not strong. Our institutions are not strong. To this limit, that's why I'm saying Africa needs to come back to their senses and start working hard and make institutions, number one, democracy as a key in Africa, whereby we all talk and we are all allowed on the table to make our continent be a continent we should be recognized in every corner.
All right, then. Let me take this conversation to Kenya. Mr. Martins, interestingly, I come to you because of your position as a financial expert. Well, there has been strained relationship between the U.S. and, of course, South Africa when it comes to their economic relationship, because, again, the AGOA trade that has been extended for another 12 months is particularly because the fact that South Africa majorly benefits from it. But some have said this is a strained relationship between Washington and Pretoria might not end anytime soon should South Africa not accept Mr. Basil as the preferred candidate of Donald Trump. What do you think as well?
Thank you, Mr. David. One to start with is that the United America and South Africa, the two countries have been having diplomatic issues, which related to trade, which related to human rights, and the other avenues in the collaboration to the African trade and the welfare of the Africa. Secondly, we have seen United States lifting, hiking the tariff of South Africa. This ends make it handy for the two countries to trade. So in the move to bring the diplomatic ties to solid is very critical. But however, there is an avenue of Africa Union to restructure because they should mediate this matter. Secondly, you find that South Africa trade is a key benefit to United States. So still, for United States to penetrate the Africa market, they need South Africa. And without South Africa, you find that it is hard for United States to consolidate the trade ties across the Africa. Because one thing South Africa has been very influential in the Africa Union. So you find that it makes handy for United States to consolidate Africa markets.
All right, then. Let me stay with you, Mr. Martins. A situation is emanating in your country where the passengers at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta's International Airport, one of Africa's busiest air transport hub, are facing significant disruption as a result of the strike by air traffic controllers entering the second day. First off, what's the situation of the strike, the aviation strike in your country? And then how much of an impact are we seeing on the economy as the strike enters day 2?
Yeah, actually, this is a very sad incident or occurrence that has happened in the country, because our international airports are the key basic of transport across the globe. So you find that when it is that system is disoriented, it affects the global market. Secondly, we can see that the labor law has been violated as well, because the international airport, the employees should be salary and remuneration should be something that is reviewed every year. Secondly, these people or these employees or staffs should be exempt to tax, should be exempt to the incentive that comes with the government of hiking the tax. So I think this is an issue that is affecting not only Kenya, it is something that is affecting the entire Africa state, whereby labor law has not been consolidated to favor our people. So this is for ongoing concern, since it puts the country in a gap between the global transaction arena.
All right, then. Well, I want to find out as well. I understand that concerns have been raised about the fact that the Kenyan aviation workers, the workers' union, KAWU, are embarking on this strike on the back heel of defying a court order.
Yes, you find where the workers' union has been the player between the employee and the employer. So you find that even the court orders will be highly violated, and this ends put the government in a fix. So in this case, we would like these policies of employability and the issue of salary and remuneration being addressed to the fullest, whereby the workers in various places like airport, which attract the global arena, should they should be well financed, they should be well catered off, their well-being should be well looked at, so that we can disorient the occurrence of interference in the global area.
All right, and before I come to the studio, let me take this conversation to Uganda. Well, Barrister, interestingly, this is a situation that has consistently come up in the public space, and questions have been raised about the fact that workers are demanding fair contracts and, of course, the completion of the CBAs dating back to 2015. Now, my question to you, Barrister Edward, is why does government, not just in Kenya, consistently wait back until workers down to before wanting to have conversation and summoning the union to have conversation with them? Because right now, the Minister of Transport in Kenya has summoned the union and the aviation authorities to a meeting to break this protest and this strike. Why do we have to wait to that level, Barrister Edward?
You know, just as you have said, why to wait up to this moment? The bargaining agreements in any law, when you sign, you need to respect that agreement. So a question is, why up to now? So you get that in all traditional administrations, there is always laziness on a part of the government. There is always slow acting on the side of a government. This is not the first time this issue has been handled.
Right.
We have seen it there and then. The only thing the public authorities do is to call the workers for discussions. Discussing what? There is an agreement signed. It is just a matter of implementing what the agreement has been agreed for. Workers, actually health workers, recently, until it had to be sit them on the boardroom, you wait, sit them in the boardroom, and you get the economy is actually totally going down. That's where the problem is. I don't know whether the government can look at the laws at this particular time where you see JKI is actually in that state. It is not actually even to say the person traveling, let's look at the part of economy. The economy is in dire need because billions of money is lost, and now the people who actually now need to travel for other activities, then we can say the world is losing because this is an international airport. So I believe I should blame the government in this case.
All right, then let me bring this conversation back to the studio. Barrister Darlington, this is something that I think you're familiar with because most African nations, and I'm going to come to you in the part of Nigeria, use the court orders to always find a way to halt the union's protest. Why is government's reliance on court injunctions consistently on to stop a particular agreement that have been reached upon? Maybe not the administration, maybe previous administration. Why do they have to rely on court injunction? Because again, the workers again are clearly going on this particular strike at the back heel of a court order.
You know, in a country, there are several unions.
Yes.
And these unions, most of their welfare and salary issues and all that, and conditions of work are not being implemented by the different governments from different part of Africa. And so the fear of government is that if we now koto or agree or surrender to one union, another union is likely to come up and make demands. And so they would want to use one union to delay others.
But this bargaining has been since 2015.
Yes, that is it. I mean, take example with Nigeria. Look at ASU and the other union in Nigeria. Have they ever agreed to implementing the agreement with them? The answer is no. And the reason is very clear. Government don't want to give you your right. They want you to fight for it all over the world. They want you to fight for it. And maybe in the process, a lot of water would have passed under the bridge. That is how it is with government. And so I am not surprised with that of Kenya. Yes, with that of Kenya, I'm not surprised. Because that is their stock in trade. Most times, except they have a strong union, they won't get what they want from government. Yes, except they have a strong union. The government know that, yes, this is your right, but they want you to demand for it. They want you to fight for it.
Well, quite unfortunately, really, this is where we have...
On South Africa, please.
Yes.
I think Ramaphosa need America more than America need them. The only reason why Donald Trump was quick to bring an envoy is because of the whites in South Africa. That's just the truth. Because remember AGOA. South Africa is the greatest beneficiary of AGOA. Mm. And when Julius Malema was demarketing Ramaphosa in South Africa while they are killing, the picture he sent to Donald Trump were pictures of apartheid. It was later discovered. And that was why the government of South Africa now had to raise his own issue. That you won't pull a gun in a crowd. And now Malema is in detention, is in jail. So most times, the whites think that African leaders they have not come of age. But I thank God that Ramaphosa has proven himself with Donald Trump. So I think they are going to have a good relationship now. He's going to send our South African envoy to America.
All right then. Well, because of our time, really, this is where we have to draw anchor on the analysis segment of the African news. We've been talking with Barrister Darlington Agumbo, public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Also, Barrister Edward Okwara-Matakinye, who also is a business associate and also a human rights activist in Uganda, and also financial advisor, Mr. Martins Irere Njue, CEO, Wellgate Insurance Agency. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for being a part of this conversation.
My pleasure.
We'll take a very short break right now. When we return, Somali hails deep sea drilling mission with Takiye. This and more when we return after this break. Please stay with us. We're glad to have you back. It is still the African News right here at Voice of the People Television. Now to more stories. Somali Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Barre has hailed the launch of Turkey's deep-sea drilling mission off the coast of Somalia as a historic step as Ankara deep-sea drill ship Kagri Bay makes its way to begin its first overseas mission. Barre wrote on X that with Kagri Bay, the country may be witnessing the beginning of something greater, the opening chapter of real economic transformation. He described the mission as a moment when Somalia's natural wealth begins to drive national strength and deliver the long-awaited impact for the people. According to him, generations of Somali people have grown up hearing that the country was rich in resources, yet for decades they had waited to see that promise fulfilled, but now better days are on the horizon. He praised what he described as Somalia's Turkish brothers, led by President Recep Erdogan, for choosing Somalia as the first destination of the historic mission. He described the decision as more strategic, saying it is a symbol of trust crossing distances as and a testament to the evolving partnership between Turkey and Somalia, rooted in brotherhood and a shared belief in a better tomorrow. Moving on to other stories. And of course, the business part of the African News, the head of Niger's military government, General Abdurrahman Tiani, has declared the start of a new dynamic with Algeria. General Tiani met with Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune in Algiers to announce the construction of a new gas pipeline. Tebboune said the visit marks the end to an abnormal period of chilliness between the two countries. The new pipeline runs from Algeria to Nigeria and will cross the territory of Niger. Initial steps are due to start after Ramadan. The 4,000-kilometer trans-Saharan gas pipeline will transport gas extracted in Nigeria to Algeria and has been on the drawing board for over 15 years. Plans for the project had accelerated in early 2025 before the falling out between Algeria and the Sahel states. Following Monday's meeting, however, Tebboune promised support for Niger, which is facing severe economic difficulties, listing plans for projects in the health and education sector. And to wrap up the African news, we go straight talking sports. Nigeria's participation in the World Cup will depend on FIFA's awaited ruling on the country's eligibility protest against the Democratic Republic of Congo. FIFA was scheduled to give a verdict yesterday after a review of Nigeria's petition alleging that DR Congo fielded 6 ineligible players during last year's 2026 World Cup Africa's playoffs. Nigeria lost on penalties to DR Congo in Morocco, marking the second consecutive time the West African country will not qualify for the World Cup. And with that particular sports story, we've come to the end of African News right here on Voice of the People Television. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we're at Voice of the People TV, and on all other social media platforms, we are at VOPTV Live. Thank you so very much for being a part of this broadcast. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.
In a world where power shifts with every headline.
In a nation full of questions.
In a world filled with noise, the truth needs a voice.
The policies that shapes our world and the economy that determines our future.
Every hour, every day, the grapevine keeps buzzing.
And together, we are committed to telling the stories that shape